Quick, I want to introduce PJ Bain. As I mentioned earlier, he is one of our sponsors of the Prime Revenue, and he's going to talk a little bit about a few things we got going on.
Thanks, Zach. You all can everybody hear me okay? I know the acoustics are a little off, so I'll try to figure out the distance so when the Admiral gets up, he can. I just wanted to introduce, I'm representing two sponsors this evening. I'll tell you all about Prime Revenue, but I'm not going to take any time about that here. So if you're interested in Prime Revenue or you have billions of dollars that needs moving around the world, come talk to me afterwards. I'm going to spend just a minute for national security, which is one of our sponsors here tonight. Ben's, anyone that's wearing one is also a from Ben's. Ben's is a nonpartisan, nonprofit network of business professionals, senior business professionals around the world. There are over in the United States, about 100 of those are here in Atlanta. We are men and women, CFOs and business owners, very senior level folks from the private sector that bring private sector expertise to bear on security issues with national security agencies. With private sector expertise with our network of individuals around the world. If you have any interest in learning more, please talk to anyone that has a lapel pen, or feel free to ends.website. Also want to call your attention to these handouts that we Southeast. The region here is launching. How's that? Is that any better? Much better. The Ben Southeast is launching the Next Gen BENS program, and we are looking to recruit a select group of high potential younger professionals that will be that next generation. So if you know of a young professional that is on the path to becoming a CEO, a CFO, a business owner at some level of scale, has a heart of patriotic service that wants to give back, we will be launching a program in August, September timeframe that will be a 9-month executive development program, executive mentoring program at a much lower price than what our typical memberships are, to be able to access everything that BEN's members access, along with mentorship and guidance into how these young professionals can develop their careers moving forward, as well as give back to their country to help make America a more safe, secure, and strong country at home and abroad around the world. Again, any questions, visit the website, bens.org, or talk to any of us that have lapel pens. We would love to talk to you about it. And now it is my great privilege to introduce someone that needs no introduction. So they asked me to introduce somebody that does not need to be introduced. That tells you the faith that they have in me. I think everybody knows this individual, but the work that Steve and his family do for our city and for our country is just absolutely amazing. So in addition to sponsoring tonight, I have the privilege of working with Steve and with his brothers and other organizations around the city. And I know that the heart that entire family has for our city and for our country, and we're all very grateful for that. So Steve Hennessy, I'm very happy to turn it over to you.
Thank you for those very kind words. I appreciate it very much. Well, we're in for a treat this evening. And so, you know, it's really fun for me to have an opportunity to be able to introduce an individual of our guest status here this evening. Want to wish a warm welcome to Admiral James Stavridis, our distinguished guest and keynote speaker for today's event. By the way, he knocked it out of the park today with with Bob Wright at lunch. Kept hearing just outstanding feedback from that program this morning. The Admiral is a native son of Florida. He has left an indelible mark on the global stage through his remarkable career spanning 37 years of the United States Navy, rising to the esteemed rank of 4-star admiral. His leadership and strategic acumen have navigated critical operations across diverse theaters, including the pivotal role as the 16th Supreme Allied Commander at NATO. During his tenure, he orchestrated operations in Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, the Balkans, and led efforts to combat piracy off the coast of Africa, showcasing his unwavering commitment to international security and cooperation. All the garden spots, right, Jim? Notably, Admiral Stavridis served as the youngest serving combatant commander in recent U.S. history, where his visionary leadership and unwavering dedication shaped military operations throughout Latin America during his tenure as U.S. Southern Command leader in Miami. Beyond his illustrious military career, Admiral Stavridis has continued to inspire through academia, serving as the Dean of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. His contributions to the field of international relations are further evidenced by his prolific literary works, with his books translated into over 20 languages and reaching audiences worldwide. As a matter of fact, I have a copy of a terrific book he wrote about 4 years ago, 2034. It's about the next world war and happens to include nuclear weapons. And it is a fascinating, I don't want to say fun, a fascinating, interesting, insightful book. And I understand his successor that we'll all get a copy of this evening follows along the same line. So looking forward to reading that as well. As a thought leader and influencer, his TED Talk on 21st century security has garnered over 1 million views, while his insightful commentary continues to enrich global discourse through various media platforms. Currently as partner and vice chairman of global affairs at the Carlyle Group, Admiral Stavridis remains at the forefront of shaping global investment strategies, underscoring his multifaceted expertise in both military and economic realms. Moreover, his dedication to service extends to his role as chair of the board of trustees of the Rockefeller Foundation, where he continues to champion initiatives aimed at fostering positive social impact and sustainable development. As chair emeritus of the board of the US Naval Institute and respected columnist and analyst, Admiral Stavridis embodies the ethos of leadership and service, exemplifying the highest ideals of the maritime profession. We're truly honored to have him grace us with his presence today, and we eagerly anticipate his insights and wisdom as we navigate the challenges of the 21st century. Please join me in extending a heartfelt welcome to Admiral James Stavridis.
Full introduction. I'm not going to use the podium. Thank you to all who are here. Thank you for. Okay, I can do that. Podium. This isn't. Are you hearing me now? No, not good. You want to try the other mic? Okay, let's try that. How we doing by the bar? People back there. I think unfortunately it's kind of in and out on the mic. And here. What I thought we would do tonight is use this as an interactive session to kind of take some questions or some ideas about the international world. And I want to begin by saying it's okay to be a little scared. The international world today, as you look at the Middle East, come on, guys. Okay, I'll try, just still not working, Zach. I mean, I can do this with my own voice if I can try this again. Wow. I don't. I think I can.
I'm a very powerful voice. I may not be to death. Maybe if you stood in the center and everyone just kind of came around. I want to wear out your voice. You may try that.
I'll just try and project. Can you hear me in the back of the room? Okay. I think it's perfectly okay to be worried about the international world. You look in the Middle East, you look at Ukraine, Russia, you look at the US, it is deeply concerning. Wow, now we got a phone bill. That would be $50. What I would like to do is just open it up for some questions and comments about what's happening. But let me begin by giving you a snapshot of those three challenges. I'll start with Ukraine and Russia. And I recognize let's be honest here, the political dimension of this. There are some Americans who feel as though we should not support Ukraine. I think they are wrong. And I'm going to say that unabashedly in this city of Atlanta. We ought to care about what happens in Ukraine. Because Ukraine falls and Putin succeeds and sweeps across Ukraine, he will not stop. I have stood by the top with Vladimir Putin. I have commanded forces in his path. He will not stop. So we can stop him now by arming the Ukrainians who are asking not for a single U.S. soldier, not asking for a single U.S. pilot, not asking for a single naval vessel. The Ukrainians asked for $60 billion. Sounds like a lot of money, right? U.S. defense budget, $900 billion. Hey, ladies, could you quiet down? $900 billion. The Ukrainians are asking for $60 billion. It's 5% of the U.S. defense budget. If we provide it, we will break the phalanx of the Russian armed forces. It will become the best return on investment in the history of the U.S. Defense Department. That's a fact.
Yes.
Point two, the Ukrainians are committed to this fight. They're willing to sacrifice and die and they are not asking for us to deploy in combat there. So let me simply make a plea to those of you who are talking to representatives, who are talking to folks on both sides of the aisle. This is a cause worth supporting. That's Ukraine. Let me shift gears and go to U.S.-China. U.S.-China. Here we have a significant strategic competition in front of us. We would be foolish to understate this. We would be foolish to ignore the challenge of China. So what can we do about it? I would argue our defense budget needs to be at a pretty high level because China is spending and increasing. Number two, we need a plan. Our plan ought to be to create an alliance structure in Asia. Not like NATO. That's too complicated, too difficult. But what we could do in Asia is knit together Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines. All of these nations have a vested interest in standing in the face of Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. I think there we have an opportunity not to recreate NATO, but to create a new alliance system in Asia. And then third and finally, the Middle East. This is a tragic situation. And two things can be true at the same time. What I mean by that is Israel was viciously attacked by a terrorist group, Hamas, who raped, tortured, mutilated Israeli citizens on October 7th. And therefore, Israel will respond, as we would. Let me put it in context for you. What happened to Israel on October 7th? Israel's population is 1/35 the size of the United States. So in round numbers, on October 7th, 1,000 Israeli died. That would be a 9/11 in the United States, where 35,000 Americans died. On October 7th, round numbers, 200 Israelis were taken hostage. No Americans were taken hostage on 9/11. Population adjusted, that would have been 9/11 with 7,000 hostages. Think about those numbers for a moment. So it is true that Israel has received a grievous blow and is appropriately seeking to destroy the terrorist organization that attacked them. What else is true? It is also true that 2.2 million Gazans live in this tiny strip of land, the size of Atlanta. 2.2 million Gazans, half of them under the age of 17, children. They are starving, they have no medical treatment, they have no path back to their homes. These are both true. So our role as the United States of America, my view, is to continue to support Israel in their justifiable war against an entity, a terrorist organization that attacked them. equally true, we should be saying to our Israeli colleagues, you have to take care of the 2 million civilians. Warfare 101, and I say this as someone who has practiced this in the course of my life and career, when you enter into a war zone as a military force, you own the civilians. You have to. My life mentor, Colin Powell, came up with the Colin Powell rule. You break it, you own it. Sometimes called the pottery marble. You break it, you own it. The Israelis broke Gaza for good reason. They own it. We need to encourage them to take care of that civilian population. Those are not opposing positions. They're both true. And in the days ahead, I believe the Israelis will do the right thing and take care of this civilian population. And they will also, my view, appropriately destroy the remnants of Hamas. I'll stop there, and I'd love to take some questions and comments and make this interactive. Joya,
So,
here's a microphone. I hope it works better.
okay. I hear you and agree with you. I'm speaking of the Middle East. The challenge for me, sort of intellectually, is how we would expect Israel to deal with the civilians when civilians are being used by Hamas as human shields, and when you have a young population that has been educated and trained to become the next Hamas. And so I don't know whether there is a sort of corollary example of when that has been the case, because I do think people say you've got to take care of the civilians. At the same time, the circumstances there are, I think, uniquely different.
So, great question. If I were the Israeli chief of defense, if I were in charge of the Israeli military, and this is not entirely hypothetical, in my 4 years as NATO commander, Joya, I was also in charge of U.S.-Israeli defense relationships. So I went to Israel every year for multiple times. What I would say to my Israeli colleagues is, you need to stop thinking about this as an on and off switch. On is, we're going to do everything to destroy Hamas. Off is, we're just going to lay back and let Hamas take over Gaza again. It's not an on and off switch. It's a rheostat, like the dimmer in your dining room. You got to dial it in. So what I would say to the Israelis at this point, because they have destroyed probably 75% of the pre-war Hamas combat capability. They got about 25% left to go. At this point, they should not be saying, yep, we're done. On the other hand, they should not be saying, we're going to just drop another 45, 2,000-pound bombs every day. What they should be doing is using their special forces, their highly trained infantry. There are a lot of veterans here. Your ranger forces. You want to move them forward. You want to be using unmanned vehicles. You want to be developing exquisite intelligence. If you do all of those things, you can reduce the number of civilian casualties. And I'll conclude with this. This is all becoming very concentrated in a place called Rafah, which is on the southern border of Gaza. And, 6 months ago, we could have put this wonderful dinner together. Thank you, Atlanta Historical Center. And we wouldn't have thought about this. It's an example of how the world moves on. So today we're looking at Rafah, a city in southern Gaza, 1 million refugees. Israel has to move them out of the way before they go after that final 25%. I'm convinced they will, and therefore the U.S. will continue its support for Israel. But your question about how you dial this in is central to what's happening. Thank you. Got a ton of questions about this.
Thank you, sir. Adam Mathis, Appleton, platoon commander in the 2nd Battle of Fallujah, doing the unenviable job of screening vehicles as they were exiting the city prior to the attack in 2004. It was not very fun. But I have two questions. One of them concerns Russia and the absence of Putin and what happens if there's a power vacuum. And related to it is Turkey. Friend or foe, and what could they do for the 21st century given their unique geopolitical status?
Yeah, Adam, thank you. These are great questions. I'll start with Turkey. I need to stipulate I'm Greek American. So my predisposition is always to kind of look at our Turkish colleagues. Let me tell you my origin story because it pertains to your question. In 19, we're going to try it again. In 19, still no, you're trying. In 1922, my grandparents, Greeks, lived in Turkey. They lived in a town called Smyrna, which today is called Izmir. I'm sure many of you on cruises have been to Izmir. It's kind of the southern California of Turkey. In 1922, it was a site of the Turkish army sweeping across the remnants of the Ottoman Empire and killing Armenians, Jews, and Greeks. So my grandparents stood on a dock in Smyrna in 1922. The Turkish army was closing in, burning the city of Smyrna, killing every Armenian, Jew, and Greek. My grandparents recognized they would probably die. They were teenagers. Greek fishermen came across the Aegean Sea and rescued them and brought them to Athens. And then they came to America through Ellis Island, 1923. That's my origin story. Here's the punchline in the answer to your question. In 1993, 70 years later, their grandson, I, came back to Smyrna in command of a $1 billion U.S. warship. And I pulled up at that same pier. And the Turkish liaison officer came aboard with his clipboard and said, Stavridis, oh, that's a Greek name. I said, no, my grandparents were citizens of the Ottoman Empire. So here's my point. Turkey, which you correctly state, enjoys this extraordinary geographic position, geopolitical position, critical to the NATO alliance. So as much as my story would tell you that I have antipathy for the Turks, I do not. When I became the NATO commander in 2009, many years after my return to Smyrna, my staff said, okay, Admiral, where do you want to go for your first trip? Do you want to go to London? You want to go to Paris? You want to go to Rome? You want to go to Berlin? Big countries? They said, do you want to go to Athens? You're Greek American. And I said, no. The first city I want to visit is Ankara, Turkey. And I went to Ankara. I met with Erdogan. I met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ahmet Davutoglu, later Prime Minister. And he met me in the presidential palace, and he gave me a gift. And the gift was a book of vintage postcards from Smyrna in the 1920s. And he said, Admiral, we know your past, but in Turkey, we believe we need to remember the past, but not be imprisoned by it. That's a pretty good line. So the answer to your second question is, Turkey is important. They are a critical part of the alliance. And despite the day-to-day frustrations of dealing with Erdogan, I am convinced over time Turkey will be an important functional part of the alliance. In terms of the first question about Putin, life after Putin in Russia, boy, isn't that nice to contemplate? So we've talked about a couple of my books. In 2030, set in that year, Putin is still very much in charge of Russia. And I think he will be, barring a medical excursion, which we should all hope for. But Putin, I think, will be the last Tsar of Russia. I think after Putin, that society will find its way to a better outcome. No guarantees. And we all watched the tragedy of Alexei Navalny, opponent of Putin, who was assassinated by Putin. It doesn't give you a great deal of hope. And you think to yourself, Putin, he has complete control of Russia. Kind of looks that way, right? I'll close with this. 100 years ago, there was another Tsar who felt he had complete control of Russia. Nicholas II. He had the military. He had the secret police. He had Nostrovia. He had the Cossacks. He controlled Russia. 100 years ago, almost exactly. How'd that turn out for Nicholas II? He was shot to death in a dirty basement in the Ural Mountains, tragically with his family around him. Russia can flip. So if I were Putin, I would not sleep easily with that crown on my head. Watch that space. Others? How about Fletcher?
Real quick, and the Army guy can't use the mic now. We do have to be mindful of time frame because we do have a main speaker event happening in about 15 minutes. So we do have little ways to walk down to the other area if we can keep it concise. Very concise. We have about 3 minutes to ask a question, and we do have books for everybody. Over here to my left, we have books as we walk that way. Make sure you bring everybody before you go down to the main speaker event. So.
Thank you, Zach.
Hello. Admiral, thank you so much for being with us tonight and for your service to the ground and destroy. Just told us about Turkey and your return there. Interesting in your discussion, not looking to the future, potentially the next book you're going to write that you read about you not mentioning India. Helping us understand the role of India in the future, because it's going to be a big role.
Yeah, I think this is a great geopolitical question. And people often ask me, you know, what gives you hope about this unfolding century? India gives me hope. I'll tell you why. It's a massive country. It has the largest population in the world. It's just overtaken China. It is demographically ascending, meaning its productivity is improving. It has incredible innovation happening. It is geographically located on the Indian Ocean, the third largest ocean in the world that is largely unexplored, unexploited. India has enormous advantage, and above all, it's a democracy. In the Indian election this year, think about this, get your head around this. 900 million people will vote. They will choose. And, you know, India's got lots of problems: corruption, Hindi nationalism, education, sanitation. India has many problems. But as you go through this century, India will emerge as a global power. So, to your question, in the book 2054 and in the book 2034, you see an India that emerges as a democracy, as a positive force. Will it come out that way? Who knows? But the point is, I look at the world and I think of Indian democracy, teen democracy, as incredibly positive. I'll close with this, and you got to watch my hands. Over here is kind of the West. United States, NATO, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, our allies in the Pacific, teen democracy. Over here, where my glass of wine is, this would be the authoritarian world. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba. What's down here in the middle? This is sometimes called the Global South. This is India, Pakistan, Nigeria, South Africa, Brazil, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. This is half the world's population now. Geopolitics 101 in this century. The degree to which teen democracy pulls that global south here is the degree to which we can hope for the right outcomes. It's great to be with you.